The United States charges 5 Chinese army officers with hacking into private sector companies to gain trade secrets. Russian President Vladimir Putin orders his army to withdraw from their positions on Russia's border with Ukraine. And Israel announces June 10th as the official date for its presidential election to pick a successor to Shimon Peres. Welcome back to the news today. This is the Daily Debate. Well, going on hunger strike in captivity is an established method of nonviolent demonstration and protest. Mahatma Gandhi made this choice and managed to achieve the historic end to violence between Hindus and Muslims at the end of the British Mandate in India. Nelson Mandela went on hunger strike as part of his struggle to end apartheid in South Africa. And yesterday in Israel, a law was passed by the Cabinet Ministerial Committee and will now be voted on in the Israeli parliament that those who embark on a hunger strike in prison could be force-fed to preserve their lives. Well, the law is aimed at Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails who've recently taken on this form of protest. Well, joining me tonight to debate the issue is Dr. Ghassan Abdullah. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And Mr. Kobi Sudri as well. Thank you for joining us here in this debate.
Thank you for having me.
So I'd like to ask you both, or perhaps I'll start with you, from a legal perspective here. Is it appropriate in any case for the law to limit political nonviolent demonstration?
Well, it's definitely a very sensitive question. We should remember there is the Malta Declaration of 1992, which declares that doctors should avoid force people that are on hunger strike to get a treatment. But still, on the other hand, we should remember that the bill is dealing with prisoners, meaning that these are people who are deprived of their liberty, of their freedom, and are put in a facility where the state is in charge over their safety and health. And then if such a person is on a hunger strike, there is a question whether the state have the obligation to take care of him, meaning not to let him die, no matter what are the motives of the strike.
Well, perhaps turn to you. Do you agree or disagree with this? Leaving the issue of Israeli-Palestinian politics out for a minute.
I'm so amazed by his saying that if they are prisoners, and let me be top frank with you. I myself was an ex-administrative prisoner in 1988. I was put in jail for administrative arrest, and by chance, when Mr. Ishaq Rabin visited the prison on April 1988, I was the translator for Mr. Rabin to the Palestinian administrative prisoners. Mm-hmm. And when I asked him, he said, listen, I was in this prison, it was Dahriya prison, administratively arrested like you, and I personally believe that you should not be arrested administratively. The time that Israel has come back to administrative, to the British Mandate regulations in 1985, when Mr. Peres was the Minister of Defense at that time, he's the one who brought back the British Mandate systems. Now, you said about the Malta 1992. If I were you, I should talk about the Geneva Convention number 4, which does not allow at all to arrest anybody for his hair.
But first of all, we're talking about the politics here. I'd like to start by focusing on the ethical or medical issue here. What about a doctor in position in the prison who sees a prisoner threatening risking his life?
From my experience, when I was in jail in Beersheba at Katsaud Sheva, during the 4 months I stayed there, I had no chance to see a doctor at all. I had no chance at all to see a doctor.
Even if you had wanted to?
Yeah, I asked for, even they know my file. They took my file from Hadassah Hospital because just for 5 months before, I had a surgery, a tumor surgery at Hadassah Hospital. And they did not take me to a hospital. They did not take me to a doctor.
But this was like, what, 20 years ago?
It is the same now. You know,
it's
the
totally different.
My cousin, please. The Palestinian prisoners now, the best that they can take is the Akamol. And I can give you many examples. Look what happened to Hassan Turabi
I'm sorry.
Look at what happened to Hassan Turabi. He passed away in Afula hospital just months ago, and the only treatment he was given for the cancer was the Acamol.
I am very sorry to tell you, but I think that at least you're very mistaken. I think, and more than that, I know that the medical treatment that Palestinian prisoners of all kinds get in Israel prisons is the best treatment that they can get, and it's equal to the treatment that Jewish prisoners get.
But the daily examples, can you explain to me why 17 Palestinian prisoners are still kept at Al-Ramla, the prison's hospital clinic, and they have not come back to their prison?
Of course I can't.
Can you explain to me why 7 Palestinian prisoners went to this clinic and they came back on wheelchairs?
Well, first of all, I can't explain for one reason, because
focus on here.
Yeah, of course. First of all, I'm not representing
whether they should be locked up or not out of this debate right now. We're talking about the concept of these prisoners who choose to starve themselves essentially and risk their lives. Where does a doctor fit into this? Can a doctor? They take an oath. You know, the doctor takes an oath when they go through their training and their school to step in and preserve life. Now, certainly taking the question out whether or not they should be locked up in the first place, the question here is whether or not the government has a right to intervene when they threaten their own lives, despite whether they should be locked up or not.
Being in such situation, being arrested administratively, and from experience, I'm telling you, it's an attempt to destroy you totally, psychologically, socially, healthy, mentally, everything. So the prisoners have no other alternative. They cannot go to the international community.
That's a very good point.
They use this. It's better for them, as they always say it's better for them to die, to starve and die, rather than to be kept.
Is this a noble pursuit, or is this perhaps the choice of someone who doesn't have another option in terms of they have no other option?
They have no other. Here the balance is between their freedom and to die as a result of this hunger strike.
I'm sorry to say, but I totally disagree, because
Please explain.
Palestinian prisoners, as well as all other prisoners in Israel, have all the rights. Wait, just a second.
Yes.
Let me just complete. They have all the rights as prisoners. They are not deprived of the rights. More further, they get privileges in Israeli prisons that prisoners all over Arab countries never get.
And as I said it, you can allegate what you want to allegate.
Dr. Ghassan,
please, my cousin.
The reality is not so. A second. Just respect me.
I do respect
for
you,
a few minutes.
But I can't.
The question is that.
We'll come back to you in just a minute. Let Mr. Sudri explain his position here.
Yes. The thing is very simple. Let's say that a prisoner, no matter of what nationality, if he's a Jew, an Israeli, or an Arab, or a Palestinian, he is under the authority of prison services. What should they do if such a prisoner want to harm himself? Should they let him do it? What should they do if another prisoner want to harm him? Should they let it do it? I think that there is a limit, and if he endangers himself, then it's an obligation of the prison services, with all due respect to his standing, to help him and to avoid him of harming himself.
In order to respect him as a human being, and in order to help him, if I were the Israeli prisoner authority, I should take him to the court and to see
he has the right to get to court. He can approach to the Supreme Court.
My cousin, wait, please. He's taken to the court.
By law, he's allowed to go to court.
His lawyer, he himself are not allowed to know what is he accused of. So it is always secret file. The lawyer doesn't know about it. The prisoner himself doesn't know about it. So how should a lawyer and the prisoner defend himself?
But the judge
only the judge.
And he is criticizing the material. And I must tell you, out of my experience, that in many cases, military judges do not approve arrests like the one that you were talking about.
Can you tell me why 400 and more are still administratively
Because there are very good reasons for that.
Well, certainly
but
getting
this
away
is
from
not
the topic
this
here.
is not the matter here.
Not the topic for discussion here. The politics definitely perhaps cloud this issue. We have some precedent for this. The United States does this with their detainees in Guantanamo Bay, and certainly that's a controversial issue. And a grotesque form of force feeding their prisoners who have been on hunger strike for years with no charge formally pressed against them. You're talking about people who are going through the legal system here, or at least there's a judge who there are charges against these people. These prisoners in Guantanamo Bay haven't even had that right, and they're on hunger strike for years, being force-fed by tubes. It sets a precedent here. It does take place in these types of situations elsewhere. Does that set a precedent, though, that Israel could follow?
Well, first of all, it does, and I must remind you that the Supreme Court in the United States had decided that this force feeding is not an unusual and cruel punishment, which contradicts the American Constitution. And here in the Israeli bill, what it says that the district court will have the authority to decide in every particular case if this is a justified treatment in the particular case to the particular prisoner who is on a hunger strike.
But the laws assures the prisoner's right to defend himself.
Of course.
But how can he defend himself if he is not aware, he does not know what are his accusations? You know, they go to the prison and they don't know why they are in the prison administratively. Why they don't know?
So then he should starve himself? That's the
Abdullah,
solution?
This is a way. This is a tool. This is
Dr.
a
Abdullah,
tool
let
to
me
raise
ask
up
you.
his case.
And then what?
How would you feel to see a Palestinian prisoner, for example, specific example here that we're talking about, how would you feel to see them actually starve themselves to death in this situation? Then would you blame the Israeli authorities for not having intervened?
It's not easy for me to see my brothers and sisters starving, even if they were Israelis or even if they were Americans or Bulgarians. It's not easy for me to see a human being starving and using his health as a tool to defend
It's an act of
his
desperation,
freedom.
no doubt.
You see, it's not easy at all. But
if he dies, would you feel that the authorities in charge of the prison had some responsibility for that?
Yes, the authority is responsible for that because they did not give him his rights to defend himself and to know why is he arrested.
And the death can cause riots. I mean, this can cause a serious issue. This is something that it would seem that the authorities need to be in control of.
Let us all hope that none of them will die. Let us all hope this, and let us all hope that the Israeli government and the prisoners' authorities will change their position, not the same as they took yesterday by telling them, okay, go and die. We hope that they will change, and we hope that they will be sent to the courts. They should be.
Well, the hunger strike, the end game for the hunger strike is certainly starving to death. To make a point, to be a martyr for a cause, no matter what that cause is.
Yes.
As we mentioned some more noble examples of this before. But again, we're talking about the legal precedent of a state, of the authority coming in to basically infringe on an individual's right to do with their body as they wish. I'm turning to you as the legal perspective on that, again, away from the politics.
This is correct, but in one significant difference. We're talking about prisoners, and prisoners are not as other human beings.
But there's a military.
No. Listen.
These aren't just civilians
there is
necessarily.
One difference.
Not citizens of Israel, per se.
Wait, no. It doesn't matter if they are citizens of Israel or not. Of course that they have the right for respect and for dignity and for keeping. Of course.
Thank you.
This is fundamental.
Thank you.
This is fundamental.
And do you think they have it?
But of course they have it. Of course they have it. But this is exactly why. If they are prisoners under the authority of prison services, then the prison services have the obligation to do whatever they can to keep their safety and their health.
But the fact that these are prisoners under essentially military detention, doesn't that complicate the situation? It's not as clear a case as a citizen who's been arrested with his rights stripped.
Of course it does, and it even strengthens my what I say here, my argument, because if, for instance, a Palestinian prisoner will die, or even if an Israeli prisoner will die under self-starvation, do you imagine the public criticism because of that? Do you imagine what kind of riots will arise because of the negligence of prison services? This is why there is a limit. I respect all the rights of all prisoners as human beings, but still, you need to keep their health and safety.
Thank you. I'm sorry we're out of time here. Dr. Ghassan Abdullah and Mr. Kobi Sudri, thank you both for being here today and contributing to our debate. We'll be right back after the break with One on One.